and we can get started.
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, good
Who's
afternoon.
who's controlling the PowerPoint?
I am.
Oh Lord.
I got this, sir.
Uh, so you're gonna start in 30 seconds. Well, 10 seconds. I'm about to wait. Good evening, everyone. My name is Treon White. I'm honored to serve here in the Great Ward Agency Council member. This is our FY 2025 community budget meeting around our budget and our budget priorities. I host these each and every year, sometimes a few times a year, to listen, learn, and also educate and inform community how the budget works. We consider the budget our moral document of what DC cares about and what our values are. We try to involve the community uh, as much as we can because I believe that the power is in the people. And sometimes when you got information and know how to use that information, you are empowered as a group to make some informed decisions about what you want to see in your life, in your community. And we are hired to do just that. In the past years, we've had some strong budgets. DC has had one of the healthiest budgets in the country. If you listen to the experts, strong bond rating. Uh, we've had more money in 2024 than we ever had in DC history. Is that right, Jen? 20 million, 20 billion. We never had 20 billion. And surpluses every year since I've been here. But it's a matter of not how much money we have, but where that money gets spent. And there's always competing priorities all across the city. We have a mayor who sends us the budget. We have 13 different council members with different philosophies, different needs, serving different parts of the city. We all try to come together to deliver for the district. Today, we are joined by our own Jen Budoff, who's the budget director. You will hear from her. We also joined by Miss Ann Phelps, who's the budget counsel and chief of staff of the council for the District of Columbia. Um, and we will also give opportunity. Sorry, Miss Phelps, I didn't butcher your title, but we'll fix it. We'll also give an opportunity to hear from you guys. I think it's important that we hear from you. Wanda, you can go to the next screen real quick. So I'm giving open remarks.
Just want to share the agenda. I'll move on, sir.
Yeah. All right. I want to start off with some of the things we've been able to get accomplished over a course of some time. Not all of these are the same time, different years, different priorities, a lot of negotiations, a lot of arguing back and forth, a lot of advocacy. But ultimately, we want you to come down or get online and advocate what you want to see happen in our community, in your community, your backyard. Um, as you can see, we historically there are a number of Ward 8 schools who have been in the pipeline to get renovations. If you heard my rant, I talk about the over 10 recreation centers we lost in Ward 8 over the last 15 years. I'm proud to say that we have not just complained about problems, but we have also offered solutions. We went from putting money in the budget for 3 recs to 4 recs. Now we are up to 6 recs. According to our last budget, I think we added money for Fort Gravel was the last one in Congress Heights. You can look at this chart here. You will see that there is $119 million for Hart Middle School, $78 million for Ketchum Elementary School, $65 million for King Elementary School, $61 million for Malcolm X at Green Elementary School, $53 million for Henley, $52 million for Simon, 24 million for Garfield, 12 million for Excel Academy, 1.5 million for Johnson's Field, 875,000 for Anacostia School Auditorium. What you may or may not know is some of this money is in what we call the out years, meaning that they may be fully funded in 2026 or 2025 or 2027. And so what we do is we try to work to get those budget items moved up. Monica, you can go to the next slide. Um, and you can see through this. It's probably a few slides. You got to imagine it's probably billions of dollars. That if last year's budget was almost 20 billion, and we're talking about 7 years, you do the math. So it's been a lot of money moving around, and we have passed the conversation talking about equality. We're talking about equity, and we still have not gone far enough to right size what we would need east of Anacostia River. Now, Navy Yard, west of Anacostia River. I know I'm used to saying that, but and Navy Yard is west of Anacostia River. And so we are talking about equity. We are renovating Douglas Recreation Center. That's a brand new recreation center at 24 million. 4 million Fort Gravel. I think it's a little more than 4 million. Uh, 3 million to renovate the HVAC system at Berry Farm. 2.9 million for summer recreation activities and accelerated learning opportunities for students recovering from impacts of the pandemic. 2.1 million for enhancing recreation opportunities for underserved areas. And for those who don't know, part of my role and responsibility is that I sit as the chairman of the committee on recreation, libraries, and youth affairs that encompasses DPR. You can go to the next slide. Okay. 70 headquarters, 33 million, 9 million safe passage programming. 7.7 million for the ones violent interrupters, 4.5 million for the ones pathways, 2 million for DRS balance initiative. And some of these are not centralized with just Ward 8 because safe passage is all across the city. So some of these are citywide efforts, and there are other members who helped us get here. In order for us to get anywhere, we need 7 votes. And there has been a lot of negotiation early on in the mayor's office to help to get some of these items in the budget. You can keep going. Okay. That Berry Farm has always been a heavy topic because people have been displaced and moved around for years and wondering are they going to come back. And so we've been working very closely with DMPED. DMPED is a deputy mayor for planning economic development to get money to POA to first do the infrastructure, meaning the roads, the streets, the pipes in the ground. Demolition had to take place, and Berry Farm went through a phase where residents stood up and organized and declared some of that ground historic property. So if you see everything flatline except for a small circle or small property of houses, because the city declared that historic property and trying to make the best use of that and still working through what that looks like. You can see all these different things. You can keep going, Wanda. Uh, 47 million for the construction of the 11th Street Bridge project. That's still underway. And with that, for those who don't know, we partnered with the 11th Street Bridge project to create the Douglas Community Land Trust. Because as we build infrastructure and do these marvelous things, what happens is the price of living goes up. And when the price of living goes up, people are forced out sometimes because the taxes. I know my first home, was it my first home? My first home I purchased on off of Willow Road, my tax on my house went up $300 in 2 years, and so especially those who are like our seniors who are on fixed income may not have an extra $300 to pay on their mortgage because the taxes have went up. And so we undergird that what is called the Douglas Community Land Trust that's going to allow for to keep houses affordable in and around that area of the 11th Street Bridge Park, which started raising a lot of money. And we're still working through how to get that to the community and make it an equitable distribution of resources to save housing, also allow people who couldn't afford to buy a house to keep it affordable and buy houses. Um, you can go for 10 million for beautification project and cleanup, 446 million permanent supportive housing. This is a citywide uh, thing. So I'll just highlight some of the things because this is going to be a lengthy list. You can read through it, and also if you would like to get this chart sent to you, we can also email it to you as well. If you put your email in the chat, I know some of you are watching online or maybe on Facebook. You can put your email in the chat. We'll find it and send it to you. As you know, we have the new Cedar Hill Regional Medical Center Hospital at St. Elizabeth. Um, and that's almost 300 million. I'm not sure what that's 126 million is. It's way more than that. Um, I actually was on the phone with the new director of the hospital today, trying to make sure that we are speaking to the residents about opportunities to work there, uh, bid on projects there, build on some of the parking lot work, maintenance work, security opportunities to make sure there's equity, that we're not just visiting the hospital, but there are people in the community that as the city grows that we are growing within it ownership. The key to wealth is ownership. Um, ERAP, I don't even want to talk about ERAP because it's giving me a headache even saying the word. Emergency Rental Assistance Program that DC has, it's a hot mess right now, to say the least. So I'm not even going to highlight that. I'm going to leave that one alone. 42 million to support rental assistance through family rehousing stabilization program. We can keep going to the next one. Keep going. All right, and so what we normally do is we normally set a list of priorities as you see on the screen. One of the things you want to do is fund workforce development opportunities for juveniles and also for youth in schools. We have a number of bills. One of them is a peer mediation grant that is designed to pay youth to be peer mediators in their schools. And that's all DC public and public charter schools throughout the district. And so we want to get that funded in this budget and empower our youth to be change agents and ambassadors of peace within their schools and get a job at their school. So you'll be hearing more about that soon. We also want to build a nonprofit incubator hub in Ward 8 where nonprofits can go and have space, an address, a fax machine, a printer, and get access to resources at a centralized hub in the world. So we're advocating for that. And you can keep going, Wanda. Oh, also permanent housing support. We are trying to figure out ways to get senior citizens in the war more money. DOS has a 50 plus program that has minimum amount of slots. And so we're trying to figure out how to get more slots for residents to earn more wages. Because, you know, most of our seniors in the ward are on fixed income. And the price of living in DC has not gone down. It's just continuously rising to the sky. It may be in Mars somewhere by now. So we're trying to make sure those who paved the way for us to do what we do can stay and live and grow and flourish in our city that's forever growing. We're trying to figure out how to strategically work with DISB, Department of Insurance and Banking, to get life insurance and rental insurance for residents. We haven't quite worked through that yet. I have my legal team looking into that, but with far too many times we're seeing apartments, floods, rodents, fires, and people are left out in the cold with no answers, looking to the owner, trying to figure out, and the owner saying, well, you're supposed to have rental insurance, and most of our residents don't. And we're also seeing over the years that people are passing away. And normally when people pass away, people get insurance and be able to bury their loved ones. And that's one of the least things they're worried about. But sometimes, especially in our community that's predominantly African American, it's more burdensome than any resources coming to the families. And so we want to figure out ways to right size that. We want to preserve money in the budget and partner with other council members on the Cedar Hill Regional Medical Center and Urgent Care Facility. And those who don't know, we do have a new urgent care facility on Martin Luther King Avenue, at the bottom of the hill. I don't know the address. It got to be like the 2100 block, 2200 block of Martin Luther King Avenue. It's in Mapleview Flats at the basement. Brand new facility, up and running. Been up and running for over a year. Next slide, Wanda. I'll pause for a minute to defer to Jim Budoff and the budget office to go through your presentation. And then we'll go to questions and answers and suggestions at the end. Thank you all for joining. For those who just joined in, I look forward to the dialogue.
Thank you so much, Council Member, and thank you for inviting us to speak at your budget forum. My name is Jennifer Budoff, and I am the Budget Director for the DC Council. And I am here with Ann Phelps, who is the Budget Counsel and Chief of Staff in the Budget Office, as well as April Caraway, who works in the Budget Office and covers Councilmember White's committee. We have a brief presentation that we'd like to go through with you, and the goal of the presentation is really just, the goal of the presentation is to give you the knowledge, the information you need to be a better advocate, a better budget advocate for Ward 8 needs. So I am going to share my screen. Ms. Lockridge, would you mind allowing me to share my screen?
Yeah, you should be able to share now. I was able to give you,
Okay.
Are you having
Oh,
challenges?
it says host disabled participant
Again,
screen
okay,
share.
let me try again. 1 second here. Is it working now?
No.
Huh, interesting. While I'm troubleshooting, if you want to maybe start chatting.
Sure. I'd be
Okay,
happy
there
to.
we go.
Am I a panelist? Do you
Okay,
have
there
me
you
as
are.
a panelist?
You should be good now.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Do you see the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. All right, so we start out, what is the budget? In the most basic terms, the budget is the district spending plan for the year, what we're spending our money on, and the type of money that we're using to pay for that spending. Now, when we were just going over all of Councilmember White's budget accomplishments and budget priorities, we were talking about capital budget spending and operating budget spending. Now, what does that mean? There's two distinct types of spending that we have in the district's budget. And the first is the operating budget. That's the largest portion of our budget. It's $20 billion. And it's all of the funding necessary to keep the government running from day to day. So it's, you know, the salaries, contracts, grants, pencils, things like that. Now, the capital budget, which is distinct, separate and distinct from the operating budget, and that's 2.3, 2.5 billion, is all of the money for building district assets like schools, roads, vehicles, IT systems, things like that. So when the council member is talking about Fort Greble, the lights at Johnson Middle School, things like that, those are all capital budget expenditures. And they are two completely separate budgets that we pass every year. And we use different types of money to pay for those expenditures. So where do we spend the operating budget? And you'll see this chart, it's pretty much been the same the entire time I've been budget director. We spend over half of the district's budget on human support services and on public education. The next largest category is financing and other. That is the debt service for all of the bonds we issue to pay for the capital budget and the capital expenditures. After that, we have public safety and justice, operations and infrastructure, governmental support, then economic development and regulations. Now, where do we spend the capital budget? The ratios have been the same the entire time I've been budget director as well. The largest chunk is operations and infrastructure. What's that? That's Metro, that's roads, IT systems, things like that. And then next is the public education system. So this is all of the renovations that we have for schools, libraries, things like that. Then next, economic development and regulation. Next, human support services. Those are things like the new ward shelters, government direction and support, and then other items. Public safety and justice, which is the smallest, that covers things like renovations to firehouses and police headquarters. I believe that Councilmember White listed, there's one MPD headquarters renovation in Ward 8. So if you look at the operating budget, you look at the capital budget, you add it together, it reflects that, you know, the district spends over $22 billion a year. And when you look at it, and like Councilmember White said, that the budget is a moral document, you know, the budget really does reflect the priorities of the district. And if you want to know what the district cares about, you want to look and see where we actually spend our money. So where do we spend our money? The biggest, by far, is the Department of Healthcare Finance. What's that? That's Medicaid. That is, we get over $3 billion from the federal government as a match for the district's Medicaid for healthcare. The next two are schools, education, DCPS and charter schools. One thing that I think is really interesting is that if you look at the operating budget, we pretty much spend a pretty equivalent or similar amount on public schools as we do for charter schools. If you see the line for public schools is longer because of all of the money we spend on renovating our schools. Next, repayments of loans and interest. This is paying, it's like paying our mortgage payments for all of the building that we do. And then we get to Department of Transportation, which is roads, OSSI, which is schools again, Department of Human Services, which are things like TANF and SNAP, homeless services, ERAP, all of those programs, and then you go down the list. What I'd like to do next is talk a little bit about the budget approval process, and I'm going to pass the presentation off to Ann Phelps to talk about, you know, how we, everything that we're going to be doing at the council over the next 4 or 5 months. So, Ann,
thank you. And hello, everybody. Thanks for having us. So the budget process is, the actual setup is defined by law in the Home Rule Act, which is the law that's effectively our Constitution, absent us being a state. And in the Home Rule Act, it gives us 70 days from, that means it gives the council 70 days from the time the mayor introduces her budget for us to review it, modify it, and approve it. And so that's a really incredibly short amount of time for something that is combined operating and capital $22 billion or $24 billion. So the way that works is the mayor introduces her budget, and she does a presentation to the council, and then there's a hearing to the council. And then after that, the parts, each committee gets to have hearings on the parts that are within their jurisdiction. So Councilmember White, as the chair of the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs, has all the hearings on DYRS and DPR and the libraries and a whole host of boards and commissions and other activities. And so during the time the mayor transmits on March 20th, and the council committees have time to have hearings and look at the budget and makes recommendations for how that should change. And so that's the opportunity to move things around, but they're constrained by what's within their committee. After each committee does its review of the agencies under its jurisdiction and makes recommendations on modifications, those committees, there are 11, those recommendations all go to the chairman of the council, Chairman Mendelson, and our office, in conjunction with him, we consolidate all those committee proposals and create the council-wide budget. And so in that period of time, we put all those recommendations, and the chairman and the council members work together to talk about things that didn't get funded and what priorities are still outstanding that we need to try to work through in this consolidated budget. One part of that I want to mention, which is on the council committee side, just because a committee is constrained within their jurisdiction doesn't mean they're not working with other committees to get priorities funded. So, for instance, Councilmember White is often talking to Councilmember Bonds or Councilmember Allen about things in their jurisdiction to get Ward 8 priorities funded through those committees as well. So the council members work collaboratively during that time, even though they're intensely focused on their own committee because they only have a short window to do that. So we generate the first consolidated budget, we have a vote, and then we have 2 weeks to make additional changes before we hit that 70-day deadline where we have to have the budget approved. And that's that last piece, which is 2 votes on the full budget. And this is the timeline with the specific dates for this budget cycle. So the mayor's going to transmit her budget to council on March 20th, which is just 7 weeks from today, or maybe 6, but I think it's 7. And then the committees will have hearings for the next several weeks, and by May 1st, all the members will be sitting down in a room going over what they were able to do within their committees and what their outstanding priorities still are, and how we can work collaboratively to find ways to fund those other things in time for the first vote on May 14th and then the second vote on May 28th. And that's your 70 days, and it moves really, really quickly. The budget is, we talk about the budget like it's this one thing, but it's actually a lot of moving pieces. So there's all the numbers, but it involves 5 different pieces of legislation. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to say that it is actually a fairly complicated process beyond just the numbers. That involves 5 pieces of legislation we have to move in order to get everything in place for the October 1 start of the new year.
Can you just speak to the Budget Support Act and what that does?
Sure.
To the budget?
How did you know that was my favorite part? The Budget Support Act, it's like, it's a compilation of a bunch, it's filled with what we call subtitles, but all subtitles are basically individual laws that we're putting together in one big package. And the Budget Support Act, it's the thing that takes up the most of my time during the end of the budget process, but it's, every committee has the mayor will submit a Budget Support Act that'll have a bunch of legislation that's intended or designed to implement the dollars in the budget. So maybe she changing a fine or a fee, or raising taxes or cutting taxes, or she's giving an agency new authority to implement a new program that she's funding in the budget. There's a whole variety of things it could be. The council members also, through their committees and through the council-wide budget, add additional subtitles, so additional pieces of legislation within this big package called the Budget Support Act. And that's the place you'll see a lot of grants or the creation of I think last year was at the Ward 8 incubator. And there's a lot of different things that happen through the Budget Support Act, but it is a massive document. I think the biggest we've ever had was like 600 pages or something. I think we've kept it a little tighter, under 200 the last 2 years, but it's a big piece of legislation. Is that what you were looking for, council member?
Yep.
Okay.
I think that language in the budget is very important on
Yes.
how the money should be spent, or what does that mean for different priorities.
Absolutely.
Oh, and should I do these slides?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I didn't. But, quickly, because, we want everyone to be able to ask questions. But as you are going through this process, we hope that you will use the website that our office put together, which is DC Council Budget, dccouncilbudget.com. And on it, we have links to everything that you will ever need to refer to with regard to the budget.
Okay.
So we have a lookup tools, we have the links to the budget books, links to all of the pieces of legislation. But again, anytime you're looking for something with regard to the budget, go to dccouncilbudget.com.
And we'll have a button on the front. Sorry, Jen. We'll have a button on the front
Sure.
page of the website that says, right now it's not there because the budget's not out yet. But there'll be a button on the front page that says fiscal year 2025 budget. And if you click on that, it'll take you to the main page for the budget, where we update it as quickly as we can with all the information we get from the executive branch and everything that we're working on.
Yes. And this is just a visual representation of the lookup tool we have, so that you can look up, you can use a visualization to look up any line item in the district's budget. And then this is just our contact information, which is also on our website. And, we are a council-wide office, so we are a resource for all council members. We are here to assist and to help with, everything through the entirety of the budget process. So I am going to stop sharing. How do I do that? Stop share. And
All right.
And I will PDF this and drop it into the chat, so everyone can have access to this information, as well as our contact information.
Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate you taking time out this evening to share with the residents a little more in detail about how the budget works. Just want to put a note real quick. Some of our thoughts and some of our framework as we conceptualize the budget. We create different departments around, like, money for education, money for infrastructure, money for recreation, money for youth, money for seniors, money for programming, money for bills. Now, throughout the year, we introduce several measures or bills that may have a financial impact, meaning that a bill may cost money. In fact, Richard, my legislative director just walked in and told me a bill we're trying to amend may cost us $10 million to get the bill to go past. And so we're going to need you, Ms. Budoff, to do some magic. And if we don't fund that bill, it typically falls off or doesn't come to fruition. And there are several bills like that all throughout the year. There are probably about 50 bills introduced every 2 weeks to 100 from different council members. And the process has to go through, get assigned to a committee to get marked up for a vote, then get to the full council for a vote. And it's a whole process with that. But what I do know is that we try to address inequities in the budget through our lens, and we using a reference point from the Washington Post. There was a recent study in the Washington Post that noted that the historical wealth disparities between Black and white residents are growing deeper in D.C. To be specific, white households had a net worth of 81 times that of Black households. Education is not the main factor in closing the wealth gap, even though it's an essential factor, but rather disparities in affordable housing, home ownership, business ownership, and the like in those headlines. Reports also indicated that 95% of white households owned a car, compared with 78% of Black households. In Ward 8 right now, we have about 27% of people who own cars in Ward 8, meaning that most other residents are taking public transportation or other modes of transportation. And so 10 years ago, we noticed that the net worth for white families were $284,000, so the average income for Black families was $3,500. We're talking about net worth. And so we try to use the budget to create a bridge, not as a handout, but a hand up to say, for example, we created what is called the Ward 8 SIF, the Ward 8 Community Investment Fund, that gave money to 33 small minority businesses to provide financial support to their businesses. We also did the same thing with the Dream Grant. And there are other initiatives we've done through the budget, like the senior wellness center that's being built in the back of Kramer Middle School. That came through budget advocacy. And so what we typically do is create this long list of items. I create a long list, and I meet with the other council members who committee they may be in or where money may be, and also the mayor, because I try to get the money in the budget from the mayor before she sends it over, because it's harder to move it around because it's a balanced budget, meaning that we have to take money from something else to fund something else. And it's not a very smooth process, but it's a lot of negotiations that goes on during that time. And so I would digress. Wanda, because I'm using my phone, I can't see all the hands or the chat. So I did want to let you know that.
Okay, there's some chat. So there is one hand up, and that's Ms. Johnson Loy. So ask your question.
Thanks, Miss Wanda. Good evening, everyone. Councilmember, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you perfect.
Okay, and you're catching me in real time mom mode getting groceries for baby girl for lunch tomorrow. But just one quick question. I did put it in the chat, but just want some clarification around it. The wonderful ladies from the budget office, literally, Ann and Jennifer just told us that education is besides Medicaid, is a very big deal. And Ward 8 has the most kids like in the entire city. And so I know we don't have time this evening. So can we have a public education budget meeting, like just focused on our schools? Because it's a lot going on with our DCPS kids and our DC charter kids. Like it's a lot going on. It's a lot of different asks. There's a lot of, is there a way for us to do that? Because I feel like we're just not going to have that type of time in this conversation.
You're talking about issues in general, or are you talking about budget?
Just like budget concerns. Like specific schools have maybe like specific asks, like specific like the charters may have like a specific ask. Teachers may have a specific ask. Specific schools may have a specific ask. Like there are different things that they want to raise during this budget and during a time of oversight that I think deserves its own conversation.
So we will work on that. I'm not going to give a strong yes to that right now, because I would like to have the chairman in the room. The chairman couldn't make it tonight. As you know, he was at our last budget forum like this in person at the ARC last year. And it was very, very helpful for him to be there, because the education budget sits in the committee of the whole, in which he chairs. And so I would like to have him a part of that conversation. One of the frustrations I have is just too much stuff is in education to have it all compartmentalized into the committee of the whole, in which we're never able to get to some of the nooks and crannies of the budget and drill down on what we really need in the budget, and which hurts the residents. Because you got to just think about a typical hearing. We may have a round of 10 rounds or 2 rounds of 10 minutes. So you got 20 minutes to ask about $2 billion, right? And sometimes you're not, and that's questions and answers. And we unable to prioritize what we really need in that small conversation. So we would double back with the chairman in the hopes that he can host something like that or co-host something like that for the community, because I truly agree with that. And I think that if we are able to have those conversations early on, we still got to have it with the mayor, because the mayor is also the chief of schools, right? Under the DC law, the mayor runs the schools. And so that is have to incorporate the deputy mayor for education or the mayor or the chancellor or whoever we're looking for from the executive side as well.
All right. Thank you so much. And if you need like community support on that, like I can personally volunteer to help with that. I can push both their offices. So just let me know. But I really think it deserves its own conversation, because I know it's a lot of issues here tonight. And I just want to make sure that we put education at the forefront of those issues. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have Dale Owen. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Councilmember White and your staff and the ladies from the budget office. I just a couple quick things. One, I appreciate your concerns on inequities throughout the city. I truly do appreciate the situation. As a resident that lives on the north side of the Anacostia, I would just ask that our council member not forget us and not just focus on the south side. From a budget perspective, and I heard you mention in your presentation funding for vocational education, vocational schools, and I'm not sure what DC has set up for vocational training. But I think that's a very important element that we offer to all our youths. And what I use as a frame of reference where I grew up in New York, there was half day was core education, math, science, arithmetic, whatever. And then they were offered the opportunity in the afternoon to attend a vocational school. And then over the course of, 2 years, it was usually like the junior, senior year, they would leave with, certificates for whatever field they studied in at this vocational school. And then there was also a good linkage in with the local unions to offer them job placements through the union with this vocational program. So again, I don't know what DC has set up in terms of vocational program, but I would highly encourage, we spend a lot of our resources in training our youth with skills that will help them close some of these inequities that you referenced. The third question is, I guess it's more, I don't know if it's the council member or the budget team. And again, if we have to take it offline, that's fine. I'm just curious within the budget and then all these bills that occur during the course of the year that the council member mentioned, is there a process to assess the effectiveness of the programs we're currently funding? And I don't know if that's done at the committee level or what, but I would hope that we're assessing the programs that exist to make sure that they're being effective, rather than pouring more money into it or creating another program that sort of augments or just confuses potential recipients of the programs. And again, you don't have to answer that now. It's just something that I'm kind of curious about. But thank you very much, especially to the council member and his staff and the budget team for your service to the city.
Thank you. I want to show you, Dale, that I am the councilman for the entire Ward 8. And I try to show up and be present as much as I can, everywhere I can, as often as I can. And I'm open to hear different priorities, because what one part of a community needs, another part of a community may not need, depending on where you are. And you can be 2 blocks away, and that's equally true. And so we want to be sensitive of everyone throughout the ward. And as far as our ability to offer certificates or training, I communicate a lot of times with OSSI and DCPS, so what they call their CTE, career and technical education offerings in the schools, and we scrub through that. I get recommendations, and I give suggestions based on what I'm hearing from students. But my deeper concern is the low level of completion of those particular trades. For example, we have a police cadet program at Anacostia. In the last 4 years, I believe we had 4 students complete the program and go into the actual police cadet program. And that's, you're talking about the average class is about 20 to 25 times 4, right? And the number is so low, we're trying to figure out what are the gaps in that's keeping people from not completing, or those who may not be interested and in other fields. So we got like Baloo has the auto mechanics program. I went to Baloo last year, and I was trying to figure out, what are they learning, what kind of certificates, because you're not going to get everything in 1 year, because some of these certifications require 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And I met the young lady who received one of the certificates, and she told me that not many people completed it. So I don't know if the student's not taking it seriously. Is it not rigor enough? Is the right people teaching? Are the students not buying in? And so there are deeper levels of not just what we're offering, but who's completing and how is it preparing our youth to get into the workforce, to get careers and own their own businesses and get into or earn equitable wages in the district. And so your last point, you asked about access to evaluation systems for programs. It exists in different places and spaces depending on where you're talking about. Programs is a general term throughout the district, and so some grantees or grantors require reports from grantees. There are other programs that I know of that submit weekly, annual, quarterly reports, and then there are some that's getting funded year after year. We don't know what the success rate is, what's working, and are they meeting their benchmarks or not. And so some of this comes out in what is called the council's performance oversight hearings, in which we look at where money's been spent. In fact, I had a hearing today on the mayor's office of Latino Affairs and the mayor's office on Caribbean Affairs, and they gave out 124 grants last year, and they gave out, I guess, 94 grants this year. And so I'm asking the grantees, how many people have you served? What's the effect? I'm going through questions and answers about that. But then again, that's still not enough time to dive into, let's say, 15 different organizations and what they've done with the particular funds they received from the government. So while it's informative, it's still not deep level. So sometimes we send questions ahead of time, and we get responses on paper that shortens our time. We can get some of the other questions from the question and answer we send ahead of time to the agencies and also to the organizations. Wanda, who's next?
Thank you for that. Jackie Ward. Miss Ward, are you ready? Oh, yeah, there you are.
Yes, I'm here. Good
And
evening.
good evening.
My issue is regarding housing. We had money running out of ERAP. I mean, after 3,500 people, we had HPAP, the money running out. It ran out last year after 4 months, came back on October 1st, and ran out approximately a week ago. I want to know what's being done so we make sure we have adequate programs to fund, adequate funds to fund these programs, because it's not good what we have.
Thank you for that, Jackie. What I do know is that ERAP ERAP is Emergency Rental Assistance Program that's designed to help people who are behind on rent. I know when we got the budget last year from the mayor's office, we had $8 million in the budget to address that. We knew that based on the numbers the year before, we spent $8 million in 2 years. I mean, 2 months. So we knew that money was going to run out. We worked with Council Member Robert White, who spearheaded that effort, along with Council Member Phil Mendelson, and got that number up to over $40 million. I guess it was like 48. Jen, you probably know the accurate number more than me. And what was it, Jen?
It was 43 million.
43 million. So we took it from 8 to 43. The council did, because we understood and know that was not enough. And what you're speaking to, actually, the money did not run out for ERAP. What happened was that the first of all, a number of complications. When they opened it up, the system crashed several times, and at some point, DHS reported that 3,500 people got funding, and the mayor broke the funding down to different parts of the year. So they opened up in October, opened it back up in January, and in January, guess what? You know what happened? The system opened and crashed again. So only a small few was able to get in, but there's still money left in ERAP. But I'm anticipating that it's going to crash again. Meanwhile, people still have eviction notices, court notices, and our office is like a call center answering calls. I spoke to a lady today who called me crying because she thought she was moving, and now she is in jeopardy of being homeless because she put her 30-day notice in with her last place and was told today that she could not move because the DC program that was going to assist her wasn't going to work. And so I have to follow back up with that in the morning. I had 2 government agencies on the phone today trying to fix that. And I'm the council member, so I'm addressing these issues frontline just as you, Jackie. So HPAP, I did speak to Mr. Donald from DC Housing Finance Agency, and he has been telling me he's working with families, but I got a call today from a lady saying that she's just disappointed in the district that money was supposed to be there. And I heard the mayor in the last budget cycle saying that we were going to get all these Black people into home ownership, and we have failed people yet again. And so that answer will have to come from the executive, because once the money goes to the executive, I'm not sure what's happening with it, but we are going to be pushing to get more money in there in this budget cycle. But we need the residents' help and coming to the hearings and advocating and platforms like this, so we can make it sure it's all the kids in Ward 8. While I'm the council member of Ward 8, I always say this: it's 6 council members that represent Ward 8. We have myself, who's the Ward 8 council member. We have 4 at-large members, and we have a chairman. So we have to make sure that's already 6. We need to see 1 more to get anything passed. That's 6 already right there, plus 1, 7. That's a majority. And so the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I want to thank you for that. Wanda, who's next?
Absolutely. Carmen McCall. Carmen, are you there?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My question for the council member is, I'm concerned with the Safe at Home program for our seniors, and about 20 to 30 have contacted me with regard to repairs of their stair lifts and things of that nature. I'm wondering if somewhere in the budget they can add additional funding so people won't have to come out of pocket to have their equipment serviced. And there are also some things that Safe at Home is not telling everybody. I know I talked to a lady yesterday, and she said you can have 3 requests for things to be repaired at no cost, but after the 3rd time, you have to do it out of pocket. And as the council member said, everybody's living on a fixed income that's a senior, and we shouldn't have to go through this, worry about paying for something and not maybe being able to pay for our medicines and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will communicate with Department of Aging and Community Living to figure out what are the barriers to that. Also, we want, if we can set up a time to address those who have called you, so we can reach out to our executive partners at the Office of Aging to figure out how we can get those seniors help with that Safe at Home program. I'm not aware of all the issues with that.
Okay, I have that. Moving on to Grayling Pressberry.
Good evening. Um, Council member, earlier you were talking about equity and you were giving off some numbers, some about disparities between whites and blacks in the city. And you're giving a statistic, Ward 8 statistic, that there's 27% vehicle ownership. And I was wondering, where does that number come from? Is that registrations, or because in our ward we got a lot of Virginia registrations? Are they counted? That's also vehicle ownership.
So I will get where I got that from. I don't know. I've known it for the last 2 years, and I study. And on the council, we get a lot of data, and that's we make decisions about data. And I know DDOT has some data. Probably got it from DDOT or a study that DDOT did. But again, to your point, no, those Virginia cars are not counted. There are a lot of, and I try to explain this to the council members. I mean, that a lot of these, and most of them don't have insurance. And because most got tickets, or old tickets and can't renew their registration. Somebody called me today about that because they like, Mr. White, I saw you. Did you pass that bill? It's like, so to your point, no, they are not counted, but there and there are another number of other factors. To Miss LaJoy Law Johnson, we have a number of youth in our ward too that's also included into that population number too, and that don't drive. We have a lot of seniors that may not drive, and so and if you drive, you may get ticket, towed, and booted all in the same day. So you got to be careful with that too. So, yep.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good to see you, man.
Juliet. If you're speaking, you're on mute. There you are.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for recognizing me. Hi, council member. I was just wondering where we are, Ward 8 is in the budget when it comes to crime and crime prevention. I'm in the Fairlawn community. Crime is out of control, and we're seeing that MPD is underfunded, and Ward 7 and Ward 8 have the least amount of resources, least amount of cameras. Also, where is DPW? We make 311 requests for illegal dumping, et cetera, et cetera. 311 closes it out, and DPW doesn't answer and doesn't help. And so all of that is really just not helpful for the neighborhood as a safe place and a clean place to live for our kids trying to get to school, our seniors. And so that's a real big issue with us in the Fairlawn community. And I'm really interested on your take on that. And thank you so much.
I appreciate your question. In my several meetings with, I think I've been in office 7 years. I'm on my fourth chief of police, third or fourth. Part of the issue is the way MPD deploys officers. I know when I complain about the officers in certain areas, the response has always been that we don't have enough officers. I mean, pretty much everyone knows and heard that at least 10 times already. So DC is in the process of hiring new officers, but the other part that people don't talk about is that once we hire the 300 officers in the pipeline over the course of the next couple of years, we're going to lose about 350 officers. So we're still be in the same place. And so the mayor and the council and even the police chief is trying to figure it out because we're losing officers to other jurisdictions. And I just told my staff to get the report that Conti authored of why it's doing the exit interviews, why people were leaving the police department, so we can drill down on that. Over the last couple of days, there have been a number of cameras installed in Ward 8. You're going to start seeing those. There are, I guess, 340 new cameras total in the district. Jen, is that accurate? New cameras, and I know a number of those are being placed in Ward 8. And they have been critical in investigating and making leeways to arrest. And I think that's still not enough. And I don't want to act like that is the end all solution to addressing the problem. There are some underlying situations in the ward that we still have not addressed in public safety. We are rethinking how we look at safe passage, violence interrupters, mental health services, substance abuse services, job creation, wealth creation, those underlying things that leads to poverty, and some of those poverty issues leads to crime. And so we don't want to isolate it. We're looking at it from a holistic standpoint. And we have a new deputy mayor, Pia. In fact, I talked to her yesterday about some of the concerns I had because at one of our middle schools, we had a teacher. Teachers were devastated. They came outside the building again yesterday at Johnson Middle School. Another teacher's car was stolen yet again. And so we're dealing with it every day. I have a comprehensive public safety plan that I introduced to the council members. But again, we have to get the buy-in from the other members and executive to address it. I was a little hopeful when the mayor issued this building blocks. Was supposed to be 152 blocks of focus areas with resources, just wraparound services. I think they started in Anacostia actually. But after that, I never heard about it again. In fact, I asked about it several times. I know Wanda texted me about it yesterday, to no avail. But I don't want to. No, it wasn't 52 blocks. It was 152 blocks. But what I'm attempting to do is to organize within the community and get people activated in their spaces and places where we can intervene in a strategic manner. And because I believe we have the ability to police our own communities, and the police have a job to do as well. I'm also in communication with commanders of 6D, 1D, 7D on a regular basis about addressing issues. And 311, if you have an agency issue, you can always contact the mayor's office of community affairs. I know one of the leaders in that is Wendy Glenn. I think I saw Julius, who's on the call. Julian, unmute yourself and tell us who you are and what it is that you do real quick.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
My name is Julius Terry. I'm one of 3 Ward 8 liaisons with the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. And me and my partners, we're out in the community, and our specific job is to help residents with whatever issues that they're having in the district, whether it would be with DPW, if you have issues or 311 requests that you have put in. The markers are the ones that are usually out in the community following up, trying to pinpoint why this issue hasn't been taken care of and trying to see it to fruition. But other than that, our team serves as the eyes and ears of the mayor to help assist residents to get their issue solved.
So also it's Julius, Charlie, Wendy. Can you leave your information for how a resident can contact you or your office?
Yes. So me, myself personally, I can be reached at julius.terry at dc.gov. My phone number is 202-826-5677. And then you can always reach our website at dcmorcas at dc.gov. And that will give you a face sheet of our entire team and what wards we work in.
Can you leave that in the chat?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. I wonder how much time we got left and how many questions we got left.
So we have looks like 8 hands up. And so what I will ask our team to do in budget office, if you have not yet done so, try to answer some of the questions in the chat, and we'll get to these 8 hands. And we have a little bit of time, so we'll get to as many questions as we can. I'm gonna move on to Shauna. You have your hands up. You may ask your question.
Excuse me. Good evening. My question is in regards to the way in which we're going to be addressing OST, specifically when it comes to equity. I have a few concerns, especially with like the information that's out there now. I know that the system and what's set up and what we want to do is one thing, but in that language, the language that's in it currently standing, it has almost 60%. They're changing the way that low income would be perceived. So somebody can make $80,000 essentially, or 65,000, and be considered low income, which those who are really at risk, the students that are in Ward 7, 8, the families that are Ward 7 and 8 that have much lower incomes, what's then going to become of them? So I just want to, I'm concerned with like some of that language, but then also making sure that the smaller nonprofits that are serving them, who have been serving young people without access to funding, without the proper resources to get those quality outcomes that we speak of, how that's going to be addressed. And then also just us thinking about creative ways in which things are working. So like, for instance, Bard High School, the kids are graduating with 2-year degrees. How do we duplicate some initiatives that are working in our community? And how do we leverage to get people behind doing that, to change like the economic factors that are happening in the community?
Thank you. That's a loaded question. I do know that based on the advocacy of people in the ward, I know also PAVE, Parents Amplifying Voices in Education, we were able to get more money in the Office of Out of School Time budget. And to your point, once it goes to that office, I don't know what are the roadblocks to getting the money from there to places that need it the most. And so if you can share what is some of the specific barriers you have faced or know people have faced and trying to get some of that resource to serve youth, that'd be helpful to me.
So with that advocacy, that I know exactly what you're talking about, a lot of that money went to my after school DC, which didn't necessarily come directly to the community. But what I was talking about specifically, like with the new initiative, is like them rerouting the way in which the language of what low income is, which means that where the resources are needed the most, that's in wards 3, 4, 5, the other wards, they're going to essentially, if low income is being increased to not just TANF, food stamps, that type of thing, and it's going all the way up to like a family of 4 can make 70,000, then more people are going to be considered at risk, which means that now Ward 7 and 8 is not a priority anymore because it's a larger pool of people. So just like in the way that things are phrased in that transition, and then also with just in OST in general, because I was a commissioner there for a while, equity is something that we always talk about, but it's very hard for it to get trickled down. Like smaller nonprofits are getting $20,000 to serve 15 kids, while larger nonprofits are getting $285,000. So it's the equity is not there in terms of them having the resources to be able to provide quality programming, even though they're doing quality work. So I'm really interested and I'm really happy, and I want to learn more about the Incubator Center for Nonprofits and then a lot of the other initiatives going on for the young people. But I'm just concerned with how some of this language could essentially leave the kids who need it the most behind if we're talking about universal. To me, universal access is like all lives matter versus Black Lives Matter. Like it just doesn't fit. So I don't know what we could do collectively, but I just want to make people aware that that is something that could potentially happen if we're going with universal OST in a sense.
And so we'll add this to our questions when we communicate with OSSI, some of our grantee partners. I know we have Progressive Life Services that come before us. We have pretty much everybody doing this performance and budget oversight hearing, and we'll drill down on that. And if we can do anything legislatively, we will. Have my legislative team on here. Again, I understand exactly what you're saying. If you open it up for everyone, then it defeats the whole purpose of being equitable and distributed where it needs to go, and it weakens the money coming to communities that need it the most. And we back at square one again. So I want to thank you for that. We'll be looking into that and looking to support you on that. But if you would like to speak to me and more about that, I would love to do that. We do that a lot with our health, Water Health Council. There's a group of us that meet to talk about priorities, and they pretty much push it to me. I figure out policy ways and budget ways to address it, and collectively we get it done. So that needs to happen in a couple of other different areas as well that we've been pushing on. I see a lot of hands, so I'm gonna digress and go back to Wanda.
Yes, we're going to take these last 6 questions. And again, please feel free to answer questions that's in the chat. Alexia, I think that's how am I pronouncing that? You're up next.
Hi, thank you. You pronounced it correctly. Good evening, everybody. Councilmember, I was just wondering if there's anything in place or that you're working to curb food insecurity in Ward 8, especially in Anacostia.
Yes. We just opened up a new grocery store in Ward 8, 2023, which was the Fresh Food Factory on St. Elizabeth's East Campus, in Sycamore Oak. We did lose a grocery store as well, which was the one on South Capitol Landing Street. I know I met with the owner of the building, which is Michael's, and they are down to 2 last contestants to get another vendor in that space. And I can't name who is going to be because the deal hasn't been signed yet. But we also put a lot of energy in the last couple of years on the well at Oxen Run. That's a state of the art, probably one of the biggest community gardens in the city in Ward 8. That's on, I guess, the four. Is that the 300 block of Valley Avenue? Yes.
Right, it is the 300 block. Yes.
And if you haven't seen it, if somebody can pull it up and put it on the screen while I'm thinking about that. And we're looking to bring in other grocery options to the ward, especially healthy grocery options. And it's becoming tougher. I guess 2 years ago the conversation was going real good, and then I guess in the last year or so it has not been a very fluid conversation because I think we lost 3 CVSs in DC in the last couple of weeks. The Walgreens closed down, the Rite Aid closed down. In fact, I had to do a press conference because John was threatening to close down. The one large grocery store we have on the east end was threatening to close down. So we have been in some trying times trying to keep stores and groceries here in our ward. So that's a responsibility on me as a leader and on the community as a whole to make sure we've been held accountable and also patronizing these businesses in a responsible way.
Next, we have Alethea.
It's in the 300 block of Valley Avenue. I've seen a question about where the garden is. It's called The Well at Oxford Run. You should Google it. It's amazing.
I'm asking the staff to find it and pull it up as well.
But whoever has to share ain't gonna be able to share. No one's gonna be able to share it. Just
share. Alethea.
Yes, good evening, Councilman, and I'm coming to you as an Ward 8 early education provider, excuse me, and I'm just asking that you consider preserving the existing funds for the early childhood programs and consider investing an additional 25 million for those hoping to attain higher credentials within the ECE field. Thank you.
Question: what's the magic behind the 25 million?
The magic behind the 25 million is due to the WTU's contract being negotiated and more early educators attaining high credentials and needing financial assistance to attain those credentials.
Got it. I appreciate that. All right, we'll put that on our list as well. Thank you for that. That's very helpful.
The next person we have is Ellis.
Hi there. Councilmember White, my name is David Schwartz. I work with Ruth Ellis on the pickleball program. And you may remember us at Capers Rec Center last year, giving you some of the initial pickleball training. I wanted to do 2 things here. One is just to thank you for your support for expanding pickleball access within Ward 8, and also to give you a very brief update of where we're at. I want to confirm, I'm looking at faces here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you and see you.
Great, thanks very much. So right now, regarding the budget, which was approved, the pickleball funding that was approved in last year's budget with your support. Thank you very much. We're working with DPR on where and how that funding should be spent. To make sure we're looking to make sure it's spent equitably and including east of the river. We think that's very important. The progress of where we're at right now, there is an active players group at Capers with lessons available through DPR. Although Capers is the only active DPR site in Ward 8 right now. There is a site, I think at Hillcrest in Ward 7, and Ward 7 has a second site, I think, opening up on Ridge Road right now. But again, the only active site in Ward 8 is at Capers. The National Park Service has allowed us to paint lines at the Anacostia Park, and we've had several events there last summer in partnership with the Friends of Anacostia Park, and we're looking forward to hosting more activities and community events at Anacostia Park as the weather warms up. The fourth thing is that we had a youth pickleball clinic held at the Southeast Tennis and Learning Center last week with pretty enthusiastic participation. And the Southeast Tennis and Learning Center is planning to expand their pickleball access, including plans for lighted outdoor courts coming up. And finally, I wanted to let you know that in coordination with the Department of Corrections, that we are starting a pickleball program inside the DC jail. The goal is to create a sustainable program in jail to improve physical and the mental health of the detainees and to help them with reentry as returning citizens as they come out. The program is modeled on other successful pickleball in prisons programs throughout the country. And so these are just a number of the things that we've got going on to expand pickleball access, which is an amazing program, despite the light sounding name of it. It gives people, it helps health, enjoyment, mental health, activity, and we're just want to thank you for your support and look forward to continuing working with you in your office.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I did have a question. I think the mayor had initially allocated $750,000, but there was a site, it was not in Ward 8, but across the street, right there, Amadon Bowen. Do you know if that was one of the sites that got activated?
I don't know that as having been activated. All I can say, I don't know that is in the case.
Okay, and
I think the money, the $750,000 that has been allocated in the budget hasn't been movement on it. In fact, nothing was initiated on it until the budget was officially approved at the end of October, I believe it was. Okay. And so we're still looking to see how that's going to be spent, and we're hoping it will be including across the river.
All right, thank you. Duly noted. Appreciate that. Wanda, who's next?
Angela Chester Johnson.
Okay.
If you're speaking, you're muted. Ms. Johnson, we'll come back to you if you're not ready. Let's go to Carlene Armstead.
Hi, how are you? I'm glad to see that everybody's here and that's the interest in the budget. My first question is how are we getting this information out to the community? Because I've spoken with folks and they were not aware that we were having a budget hearing or even how to present their ask. And how are we getting the folks to know that we are in the process of asking for what it is that we want in the budget? If we're not putting it out there some kind of way other than Facebook or whatever, the same way everybody runs around and since it's election time, they're putting out flyers or they're putting out some type of door knockers. I think since we have enough time in advance that this should be also be presented to the community. My second question is, now that marijuana is not legal but decriminalized in the District of Columbia, I've had 3 of my friends who have now exit MPD because they're saying that, or not even interested in coming through the program that you were talking about, Trayon, as far as the Academy for police,
Yep.
because how are you hiring those? How can you hire those who are indulging in marijuana when it's still considered an illegal substance? And how are you going to hire high when you're asking the police officer to have a certain kind of, and they're supposed to have a certain kind of credibility, but then if they're coming up to you and they're already testing positive, so then how are you going to say that the perk is illegally doing testing positive? So we need to figure out how that's going to happen and what are we going to do about the drugs that are plaguing our community, because that is an issue. My third issue is the recreation budget that we were given. How do we know that we're getting the money that we've asked for in the community? So the things that you've asked, or you things that you say we've asked for in the budget for the $1 million that have been presented for Ward 8, what do we have to show? How do we know that we've actually had our voices heard? So what do we have to show that we can say we've got it, and we need to put that burden down and pick up another one? Thank you.
Thank you. So let me start. How do we disseminate information? One of the things we do use social media because you can reach thousands of people at a click of a button. We don't want to assume that everyone is on social media, but that is how we're able to reach mass amount of people. We do a weekly newsletter that we send out to the community, and we depend on people in the community to go by word of mouth. And we are unable to do door knocks and flyers for it. This is over 90,000 people in Ward 8. We and I have a meeting tomorrow night as well. So I average about 4 meetings a week, and so it's no way that I don't have the pockets or the constituent service funds to get flyers to disseminate to all the residents in the ward, unfortunately. And I look upon those leaders in the community like yourself to let the neighbors know. We do a lot of dropping off flyers to different community leaders so they can disseminate sometime depending on what's going on in the community, but we don't have it all figured out, and we're looking for ways to get everyone in the know. You asked, how can those who use marijuana go into the police department? It is by law that you cannot operate in a public safety position. You can be doing driving buses or driving a police car or driving a fire truck, because those individuals are tested. But as you know, with anything, people circumvent the law when they can find a loophole, and that happens a lot as well. So that has been a barrier for people getting employment, not just in the police department, but anywhere in different work sectors, especially those who have public safety positions. I do want, you said, how do we know that those items are in the budget? The budget is it's a lengthy document. It's hard to read through because it's hundreds and hundreds of pages, but the budget is online. And Ms. Budo, can you or Ms. Phelps speak to how one can know what's in the budget? And I'll do something else in the meantime. Go ahead.
Sure, Council Member. As we mentioned during our presentation, one of our office's big initiatives to try to demystify the budget is to create our website, dccouncilbudget.com, where we have aggregated all of the information that anyone would ever want to know about the budget, and put it in one spot. Before our site, it was very difficult to track down each individual piece. We also have a lookup tool that allows you to, click on an agency name and the program and go down so on and so forth to easily find how much money was budgeted for, a particular agency, a program, how much for grants, how much for salaries, so on and so forth. And we have, right now we're in the middle of our performance oversight, lots and lots of hearings talking about the performance of every agency. On March 20th, we're going to go right into budget and budget hearings and budget oversight. There is the calendar on our website, on the council's website. So, you know, there are a number of ways to, you know, be engaged and find the information, but we do hope that use of dccouncilbudget.com really helps to, you know, helps people to be able to find that information.
So would this be by agency or by recreation facility, by wards? So when you're looking, go ahead.
Yeah, so I do also, I don't know if you have ever seen one of these in the mail. I think we send these in the mail every year for Ward 8, and it has a list. I don't know if you can see right here, but it has a list breaking down its different categories. That says health, public safety, affordable housing, economic workforce development, elders, education, and it breaks down some of the wins we got in the budget. And we've done this 7 years. Every year we put down what some of the wins in the budget. And we send this out because, as you stated, not everyone's on social media, so we send this out. And this, and we do the newsletter. So we also open to suggestions and help in that area because we can always use help reaching more people.
Thank you,
Okay.
And the next question, I'm sorry.
Ms. Lockridge.
Oh, yes, we were ready to call you. Yes, ma'am, we're ready for you.
I'm sorry. I was saying the whole time, I
Angela.
don't know how I couldn't deal with the mute button, but good evening, everybody. This is Angela Chester Johnson, and I live and have a small business in Ward 8. And my question really is about business and about money and about entrepreneurship. Councilmember White, you mentioned something about 30 minutes ago or so and said, you know, talked about the way to economic security. And, you know, frankly, things are going to keep going up. And we're not going to be able to stop that. But what we can do is start preparing our community, our ward. And I think from the kindergarten up, I heard an early child care, yay, person on here tonight. I heard someone from the business community, and all I have to say is that we have to do a Marshall Plan to instill the principles of entrepreneurship in our community, in our children, just like we do ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. And somehow we have to prioritize that. And I would say use the schools, the recreation centers, et cetera, as a catchment's net. So that's one thing. It's got to be taught. It's got to be understood. And it can't be foreign and it can't be something strange and that's over here. It has to be a very fundamental part of who we are and what we do so that we are grooming, training, and raising up new generations of people who understand buy low, sell high, and the things that it takes to run a business. Number one. Number two, I would love to see us use talent here for things that need to happen in DC. We've had a Gateway Center that, Lord have mercy, has been sitting over there for the longest time. And I know that there are things that happen intermittently there from time to time, but there's so many amazing food entrepreneurs. And if I must say so myself, but so many. I'm not singular in that. And not only are we food entrepreneurs, but we know business. So I think, I mean, I don't know. This is, I'm gonna say what I think. Whether we can do it or not is another thing. But that there needs to be some type of preferential, some kind of priority for qualified business people in Ward 8 need to be getting business in Ward 8. I love the Dream Act, but $5,000, $10,000 is gonna go quick, you know? And so it's difficult for us to just go somewhere and lift ourselves up when you have $10,000 for the Dream Act, but then the deputy mayor of economic development has money for, I mean, it's a round of money out now, which is beautiful for the city. And then it's great for us and we can compete. However, we can compete better if we have some real estate. We need some places here. I don't know what type of surplus real estate is here, government owned real estate is here. I really don't know that type of thing. But if there's designated real estate spaces where we can compete for that Gray Streets money because we are attached to we're attached to real estate in Ward 8, but we can compete for that local development money, the local made locally, made and produced locally. Ms. Lockridge is aware that I have a food business where I produce food, but big, huge issue, what? Producing it, labeling it, bottling it. All of this is business, and it's business for our community. So that's something prioritizing, Ward 8 projects, Ward 8 business for Ward 8 businesses who are qualified, give us first right of refusal. Number two, just do an automatic press on kids that can read, hear, speak, or walk on how to do business, what entrepreneurship means. And then, just that auto integrating, and then some type of an accelerator. I'm aware of Congress Heights Business Center and AEDC and ABID, and I have taken advantage of all of them, and I have been blessed by them. At the same time, I've had the wherewithal to find them, to realize that they are there. Somebody just talked about how do people know, and you want to just like suck air, right, and say, because we mail out flyers and we put it on emails and etc. But there are some people who you really got to get them to the water. You really do. But if we had accelerators, just like you got to these accelerators at Johns Hopkins or wherever, if we had a business accelerator where people who are in business, small business, where they can be taught to scale, where they can be taught to, write out something to get money from a bank, or we can do co-ops. And that's the last thing I'll say, co-ops. We could benefit from some co-op markets. Think of Eastern Market. Sometimes we're good at what we do, but we're not scaled in a way that we can take on. We don't want to promote our small businesses to a can't manage. But if you have some co-op places, some co-op businesses where you have 4, 5, 6, 7 vendors, 8 vendors who bring their specialty and their special expertises to these markets. I heard you say that the one down the street there on South Capitol is now maybe found some takers, but that would have been a fantastic location to have 4 or 5 vendors selling different things, prepared foods, fresh foods, and a benefit to the community and a benefit to them. So I'll shut up. Oh, bring back your program. Bring back your program. Bring back the program that many of us couldn't get. Is amazing. The one where you supported small businesses and obtaining capital that they pay back, I think, over time, but it's $10,000 to $20,000.
That is coming out again. I want to thank you for that, Miss Angela. That was some great ideas, and I look forward to talking with you through those. We are some of that stuff you're saying do exist, but the infrastructure is really not there. As you spoke to, as far as training and teaching kids younger. And my entrepreneurship spirit came from my family, and I went to school even through college. I'm a business administration major, but they didn't teach me how to own a business. They told me how to manage someone else's business. And so I think I was in Kramer day before yesterday, and I was teaching business and investing inside the school. So we got to figure out some non-traditional ways to capture youth, but it's hard to capture everybody. If it's not institutionalized, and that's what the core issue really is, and also comes from circulating the dollar within our own community. One of the things you talked about was food entrepreneurship. We actually put money in the budget for a cooking kitchen about 3 years ago, and I believe the Washington Business Group won that grant. I'm not sure what happened with that, but we were trying to create a space where people can come and cook and create at that kitchen right there at the Gateway Pavilion. And now they are talking about tearing that down, so we're fighting against them, trying to keep that up. But it's another plan for that space for those who didn't know. Great Street Grant. There are some minority businesses in Ward 8 that got the Great Street Grant. I know Charlie Whitaker is one of them. They are, and anything we can do to connect you with DSLBD to get technical support and access to capital, we would do that. Maybe I need to host something in the community about business and entrepreneurship to kind of fan in the flames all of what's available. And I'm open to do just that. I believe in that wholeheartedly. You gave me a lot of things. I don't know what accelerator is, a business accelerator is, I had a question about what that is and what that looked like. If you can answer that for me real quick, I know we're over time, but
So a
I didn't
business
want to.
accelerator is when you come together for a period of time. I would say anywhere between 4, some of them go up to 16 weeks. It depends on what you're doing. But it's giving you a snapshot of everything it takes to do business. And it gives you technical assistance and pours into you on marketing, banking, creating a plan, but it's all together. It's all in one, right?
Yep, I'm familiar. I went to a few. I know that CAP had one. DSWD had a few. The I believe the WIC did one time that he had. So I got you. I'm familiar with that. So okay, we'll look into that. And it was a co-op opportunity presented as a grocery option at the new location, because I know I talked to Kamon Freeman, had a group, and they presented something to them. So there has been, I am aware of co-op opportunities even in some housing dwellings. We have a few co-ops owned by uh community members as well. So I am familiar with co-ops. I believe in co-ops, and I think that co-ops need a lot of support too, because some of the co-ops didn't turn out like they're supposed to. Tell you that. But I do believe in the concept of ownership in a group. What I digress there. What else we do have, Wanda?
We have our last question of the evening going to Commissioner Kenlow. Commissioner Kenlow, you
And I
have the
seen somebody last name White had his hand up for a long last time. Is that my man White?
David White. He dropped off
Okay.
because his name was up there, but I was looking for him, but it appears that he's dropped off.
Thank you, Ms. Lockridge.
You're welcome.
I'll try to be very, very brief. Would the council member consider inserting into the budget a line item for super cans? Yeah. The last time we had super cans was in 2014. Council member, former mayor Vince Gray offered that to the city's residents, a budget, I believe, for $2 million. I believe that was expanded to $9 million because of the recycling of the super cans, but the cans we've had since for the past 10 years are pretty beat up. And I was wondering if the council member would consider putting that into the budget. And I'll take my question off here.
Yep, we will add that to the budget. And I do know I've been communicating with Director Spriggs from DPW about the cans, because some of the cans got rat holes in it, the top is broken, and they throw your cans all the way around, and break the whole top off. And some of the cans are not even big enough to hold the trash that lasts for a week. And so this have to be something in conjunction with the mayor's office, because that's a citywide thing. But we're definitely put in the budget and have a conversation what the cost is and how we can roll that out. Wonderful. And we'll get back to you on what that look like.
Thank you so much.
Council member, it is now 8:15. If you want to
like we need to do this again, Wanda. This is good energy. I love this. And I don't want you to think we're just listening. Nope, we're going to take some of this, roll it into an action plan. And you know, I remember a few years ago, some of the things that didn't make it in that budget got into the next budget. But the government just moved too slow. Like we got Congress Heights rec in the budget, Anacostia rec in the budget in 2018. It's 2024 and it's still not built. So we have been fighting to get it moved up, but they have started construction on the one in Anacostia behind Ketchum Elementary School. We had to put more money into Congress Heights because it wasn't enough to have a full court gym and a swimming pool. We found the money and put additional $13 million in that. But through our advocacy, but being organized with a unified agenda, I say this all the time. We can always talk about what we disagree on and what we don't agree on, but can we take a moment in Ward 8 to get along with the strategic plan of how we can move the needle for equity and inclusion in Ward 8? And that's the whole Ward 8. I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. I want to do this again. I'm going to talk to Wanda to make sure it can include in my schedule, because we do have a lot going on. A Ward 8 gym is necessary. We do have a gym at Sycamore Oak ran by Mr. Joe Houston. We just opened it up as one of the 13 new businesses there. I see them working out there. I keep saying I'm going to go. I haven't made it yet. We want to thank everyone for coming out. If you have additional questions that you didn't get answers to, please email me twhite@dccouncil.org or text me 202-702-6946. Again, 202-702-6946. I see our president of our Ward 8 Democrats is here, Mr. Troy Presswood. He's also going to be assisting those who want to testify at hearings. Troy, if you can say a few words and leave your email real quick, if you may, Mr. President.
Hey, I don't know if you guys can see me or not. I'm on.
We can
Okay,
see
yeah.
you and hear
Hey,
you.
how you doing, council member? Very quickly, first of all, I thought this was a really great budget conversation tonight. Great questions, great feedback. Just wanted to very quickly say I put in the chat registration for an upcoming discussion on how to testify. So all the great things that people talked about tonight, it's wonderful, it's perfect. But like you said earlier, council member, we have a total of 6 council members who represent us, right? There's you as the Ward 8 council member, but we also have 4 at-large council members. We also have the council chairman. And so it's important that we get in front of those individuals and everyone else for that matter to ensure that the things that you want, the things that you're asking for, the things that you are pushing for, and the funding opportunities, all of that happens around education and transportation and housing. I mean, we've heard the gamut tonight. So it's important that you all get in front of everybody there. It's not just enough to talk with the council member, although that's a good start. So coming up on Thursday, March 21st at 6 o'clock, we're going to talk about how to testify. We're going to talk about what it means to get your testimony before you and the members of the council there. We're going to talk about, you can do it in person, you can do it via Zoom, you can do a voicemail testimony. There's so many ways to do it these days. And we want you all to be prepared. Every part of our ward, we want them to be prepared to go down there and fight for what we want right here in Ward 8. So it's Thursday, March 21st. I dropped the Zoom registration link in there. We're going to talk about all of that. And we're going to also leave you with some templates. I know every time I do workshops, it's like, well, how can I start really quickly? Well, we're going to give you the templates. We have a letter in there that you can use. We have other things in this folder that we're going to use. And we're building on what we did last year, council member, between the Ward 8 Democrats and the Office of Council Member Trayon White. So this is not new. This is just a continuation of what we did last year. So we're looking forward to those who want to be a part of this. ANCs, reach out to everybody, community leaders, residents, tell everyone to register for this meeting. So you'll see more from the council member's office, and you'll see more from me. You also see more from Ward 8 Democrats in the weeks ahead. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate the brief moment to tell you about that.
Thank you. And then Commissioner Jamila White, I see some of your suggestions that are remarkable. I think we should follow up on those. You guys, thank you for joining us. Good night. God bless. And we look at seeing you again. We're going to send out an email with all the hearings coming up. If you want to testify, please let us know, or let those prospective committee chairs know. We look forward to seeing Ward 8 represented at the DC City Council. Thank you all. God bless.